This is Caesar de Bello Gallico I, chapter 6. So, the author of the Helvetian conspiracy, or Getorix, once the most noble and the wealthiest of the Helvetians, well, his conspiracy was found out, and he suicided himself absolutely without a doubt. Of course, not a single shred of suspicion remains. Of course he killed himself. Why would anyone else have killed him? Would anyone else have had reason to want to kill him? Actually, he tried to skirt the law by escaping. He tried to use his entire household, his debtors and his clients, more than 10,000 people, to keep him from having to answer to the law courts. So that when the state attempted to exert its rights and bring him to justice, he ended up suiciding himself. How sad. The Helvetians, however, decided to keep going with the plan that he had set into motion. That is, they were going to move their entire state from Helvetia, their ancestral land, to the middle of Gaul proper. And in order to do so, I have a map over here. We start out with Erant omnino itinera duo. So here are the two routes by which they would leave Helvetia. We're going to talk about unum, one route, which would have taken them here. I believe their exit or their final destination would be around here, around where the Santones are. The alterum, the second route, is down here. This is the bad route, and this is going to be the better one. So let's describe how they're going to leave their homeland. Erant omnino itinera duo, quibus itineribus domo exire possent. So erant, there were. This is an existential sum. So we have something's in existence in the imperfect. There were. And there were for a long time. These roots have been there for a while. They didn't just pop up and then now they're gone. Maybe they could have, might not be there anymore due to rock slides and whatnot. But that's beside the point. Erant. There were, omnino, we've seen this before. This is the adverbial form of omnis, so entirely or altogether. Itinera duo, from iter, itineris, neuter, duo, and that is the neuter form, duo. Remember that duo too is always plural. Weird. Yeah, it's more than one. Always more than one, it's two. Well, two is always plural. Weird. And that is the either the nominative plural neuter or the accusative plural neuter. I'm going to guess it's the nominative plural neuter and that the subject are the two routes, the two journeys or marches, iter, your itinerary. They're going to be the subject of the verb erant, which we already had nicely at the beginning. So there were, altogether, in all, there were two routes, two routes, two ways they could leave. Quibus itineribus, and then we're going to talk about what those routes are, or give more information about them. So quibus, relative pronoun, introducing a relative clause, the antecedent is the itinera. So quibus, either dative or ablative, it needs to be plural and neuter because its antecedent itinera is plural and neuter. Itinera is nominative. Quibus, the relative, does not have to be nominative. It will take its case from how it acts inside its clause. Its clause is quibus itineribus domo exire possent, and inside that clause it's either dative or ablative. Itineribus, that agrees with quibus, or more correctly, quibus agrees with the noun itineribus. So it's going to be ablative. It's an ablative of means, by which routes or by which journeys or marches, by means of which they're going to be able to accomplish the verb. And the verb is main verb is possent. Domo, arigato, domus us feminine, it's slightly irregular. Once again, we've seen this before, especially in the last part. We saw domum in the accusative, so that would indicate motion towards, because the accusative shows motion towards. Here we have domo, the ablative, so we're going to be separation, moving away from. If we were in the house, location, that would take the locative, and the locative of domos is domi. So from home, exire, and also remember that domos and humus and rus do not take prepositions, along with the names of cities, towns, and small islands. What's a small island? So, exire, there's the preposition ex in front of eo, ire, itus, so to go out, to exit, to leave, And that's all you need with the ablative separation to indicate from home, to leave from home, to exit from home. And then possent, your main verb, third person plural imperfect subjunctive. It takes the complementary infinitive exire. So possum screams out for a complementary infinitive. Able to do something. You can use the English verb can, by which roots they could leave from home. So there were altogether 2 roots by which they might be able to leave from home, or so that they could leave from home. What this is really a relative purpose clause. Quibus standing in for ut right there. So that they might be able to leave from home by which roots? By these, the 2. And then we're going to describe the routes, the marches, the journeys. The unum per Sequanos, angustum et difficile, inter montem Iuram et flumen Rhodanum, vix qua singuli carri ducerentur, mons autem altissimus impendebat, ut facile perpauci prohibere possent. So that's the one root, the unum, and that there's an implied iter. So one root, even in English, we would leave that out. That would be a fine ellipsis. One, etc., does this. Where it stands in for one root would then do this. So that's why unum is neuter, and that is nominative, and that is singular, and that is neuter. Per Sequanos, per, preposition, takes the accusative, through Sequanos. Now, we're not going through the people to Sequani, it means the territory belonging to the Sequani. But even we say this in English, you can go through the Sequani, through them, meaning through their territory. You're going to go through Georgia. Literally through Georgia? No, not, I mean, we're going to travel across it. So, angustum et difficile. Angustum from angustus autem, it means narrow, and that is nominative and singular and neuter. It needs to agree with unum because we're describing the root, the iter. It is angustum. It is et conjunction also difficile, which is the neuter form of difficilis difficile. So nominative, singular, and neuter as well. And those are predicate nominatives. They're predicates of unum. They are said of unum, meaning they describe unum. So one route through the Sequani, narrow and difficult. Inter, like an interstate, goes between. So we're going inter montem Iuram, through the Jura mountain range, et flumen Rhodanum, and the Rhodanus, or today it's called the Rhone River. Vix qua singuli carri ducerentur. Vix means scarcely or hardly, and we almost couldn't do it. Qua singuli carri ducerentur. Qua here is an adverb, and it's almost like there's an implied via, meaning way or road. Scarcely by which way, or scarcely in this way, scarcely going through this way. Once again, he's referring to the iter, the route through the Jura mountain range and the Rhone River, the narrow and difficult route that goes through the Sequani territory. Yeah, in this way, qua, scarcely, singuli carri, singuli from singuli I, it means in single file. So we put one, and then one behind them, and then one after that, and one after that, and the ones are carri, from carrus I masculine. These are carts, cars, wagons. Carriages would sound kind of weird here, so let's just go ahead and say carts. So scarcely, in this way, going this route, carts in single file, ducerentur, might be led, could be led. We have the imperfect subjunctive, ducerentur, third plural, imperfect passive, and the subject are the carri, nominative plural subject. The carts might be led, by which scarcely carts could be led, meaning through this route, this unum, this narrow and angustum et difficile, narrow and difficult route. Mons autem. Mons, nominative singular masculine subject. Autem. Autem is a conjunction. It's kind of like a weaker et. It's post-positive. It means like and, besides, moreover, however, but kind of fills in whatever you need here. So I would say like a and besides, because we're adding on to the troubles with this route. What's wrong with it? Well, it's narrow and it's difficult. It goes through a mountain range and there's a river. Carts. I mean, we have so many carts. We're transporting our entire civilization basically, and scarcely can we put one cart and then another cart behind it, another cart behind it, and go through this route. It's that narrow. And there's this mons, a mountain. I believe he's talking about the Iuram, the mountain range. The Romans don't really have a separate word for mountain range as opposed to mountain. So the Apennine mountain range, the Romans called the Apenninos mons or the Montes Apennini. Kind of depends. I think mostly on context. I think here we're talking about the Jura mountain range. And besides, autem, the Jura mountain range, and by the way, it's altissimus. So the delayed adjective there. Probably only delayed kind of far away because the autem is post-positive. So we have to put the mons first. If we put the altissimus first, then we would be really emphasizing how tall this thing is. But putting it later, it's somewhat its usual place. It's just the autem is kind of screwing up. It's not autem mons altissimus. It has to be mons autem altissimus. And the altissimus is kind of attacking, oh yeah, that looks like it's really tall. So, and besides, there's this mountain. By the way, it's very tall. Impendebat. It was hanging overhead. A pendulum is something a little thing that pendo, it hangs there. Pendeo. So a pendulum, a little hangy thing. Impendeo, hangs in, overhead, overhangs. And a very tall mountain overhangs, meaning that it looms over you as you are on this narrow route, this narrow path going through this mountain range. The mountains on either side, they loom overhead, and they do so to such a degree, ut facile perpauci prohibere possent. Here we have kicked into a result clause. How tall is that mountain? How altissimus is that mons? Well, ut, with the result that facile, easily. This is the adverb form of facilis facile, easily. Perpauci, not just pauci, few. This is perpauci, thoroughly few, very few. Per attached to an adjective gives a sense of thoroughly, like per plus a noun gives us through that noun. So through, thoroughly, kind of the same word there, very close. So thoroughly few, or you could just say very few. So acer means sharp, per acer means very sharp, thoroughly sharp. Prohibere, from prohibeo, prohibere, prohibui, prohibitus, to prohabeo, to keep in front or to hold off, to prevent. Usually you prevent an accusative from an ablative, but you don't always need that, and we don't have that here. We just have prohibere by itself. There's no object. Possent, like up above, it is our main verb, third plural, imperfect, subjunctive, active. And the subject are the perpauci, nominative plural, masculine subject. So that easily, very few, I would say people, possent, were able to prohibere, because possum screams out for a complementary infinitive, and that is prohibere, to prevent, and we can add a them, meaning the Helvetians. The result of the mountain being very tall, the altissimus, ut, then we have an adverb clause. How tall, how, the answer to how tall is that mountain is, well, that very few people were able to prohibit us easily, were able to stop us. So result clauses, remember, are adverb clauses because they answer the question how. How tall is that mountain? Well, it's so tall that very few people easily were able to stop us. So that is not a good iter. That would be a bad one. That is iter up here, iter unum. We could also say iter alterum, which then is picked up by this alterum here. Usually we have alterum. Think the alternate. You have two choices. You can pick one or you can pick the alternate, the other one. There is no other choice. That would be alius ut, if you had another choice. That's why alterum can sometimes be translated as the second. It stands in for secundus autem. We have unum, one iter. Instead of secundum, the second root, we can just say alterum, the other one, meaning there are only, as he told us at the top, duo, two. So alterum per provinciam nostram multo facilius atque expeditius propterea quod inter finis Helvetiorum et Alabrogum, qui nuper peccati erant, Rhodanus fluit, isque non nullis locis vado transitor. So just, if you're keeping track, we started with erant omnino, and the sentence technically ends at transitor. Classic Caesar sentence. So alterum, the other iter, the other root, and once again it is neuter, agreeing with iter, an implied iter. Per provinciam nostram, the unum went through the Sequani, the other per provinciam nostram, and this is where the problem arises. So the Helvetians want to take the easier route through the Roman province, and of course the Roman province, which is under the governorship of one Gaius Julius Caesar. Wait, that name is familiar. Where have I heard that name before? Anyway, Gaius Julius Caesar is currently the governor of this provincia, which we're talking about after he just completed his consulship of 59 BC. It's now 58. So the second route happens to go through his province, Caesar's province. Well, I'm sure that this Julius Caesar is a stand-up, swell guy. I'm sure that he's not going to do anything untoward against these people who just want to move through the province. Actually, a mass migration of a lot of people, that could be problematic. Oh well, I wonder what happens. Let's read on. So the alterum, the alternate, the second route goes through our province, the Provence. Multo facilius atque expeditius. Multo, this is the much lauded but yet dreaded ablative of degree of difference. Degree of difference. It indicates the degree, how big or how little the difference is between two things. That's all it does. We translate it with the English much, multo, or little, or a little bit, and that would be paulo. The name implies that it needs to be in the ablative, hence multo, and paulo, from paulum e neuter, a little bit. So we have multo, mucho, much. Facilius, there's your comparative. A comparative shows a difference between something. Something is facilius, easier, or something is altius, taller, altior, taller, depends on the gender. Facilius is the neuter form because it is agreeing with an implied iter, because the root is facilius, it is easier. How much easier? Multo, much easier. Not paulo, not just a little bit easier. It's a teeny tiny little bit easier. No, it is big, multo, much easier. Easier by much. Atque, souped up et, and also, and it should be followed by a vowel, expeditius. Very good. So atque followed by a vowel. If it were followed by a consonant, we would have ac, ac. Expeditius. If you expedite a package, you want it there faster. So it means fleety, footed. So you can see pes pedis in there. We want our nothing hindering, all hindrances out of our way. X, out of the way, gone. So this route is much easier and speedier. Much easier and speedier. Expeditious, also the neuter form because it's agreeing with an implied iter. Propterea quod, especially because he's now going to tell us why the route is much easier and speedier, flightier, faster. Inter finis Helvetiorum et Alabrogum. It is inter, is between the fines, the boundaries or the territory, Helvetiorum, genitive, of the Helveti, the Helvetians, them, et Alabrogum, and the Alabroges. So the Alabroges, they are another tribe. The Allobroges qui nuper peccati erant. The Allobroges, they had qui, so the relative clause, the antecedent of qui are the Allobrogum. If Allobrogum, that's genitive, and that is plural, and that is masculine, because it's a third declension. The nominative would be Allobroges. So Allobroges, Allobrogum, Allobrogibus, Allobroges, Allobrogibus. This is genitive, because they're also their fines, the boundaries, the fines Allobrogum of the Allobroges. Qui nuper peccati erant. So qui needs to be plural masculine. It is. It does not have to be genitive like its antecedent Allobrogum. Qui needs to be whatever case it needs to be inside its clause, qui nuper peccati erant. And we want a nominative there, which is why we have the nominative qui. Now, the Allobroges, they're a tribe which lived on the east bank of the Rhone River. So the east bank of the Rhone River, there they are, Allobroges. And they share a border with the Helvetians, as Caesar said. This is the alterum, iter. So the Allobroges had already had dealings with the Romans. So it was an embassage of Allobroges that had aided Cicero in exposing the conspirators of Catiline who had asked the Gallic tribe for aid against the Roman Republic in 63 BC. They had recently been subdued. They had been conquered in war by the Sanga family. So qui nuper peccati erant. Nuper means recently, and we're talking like recently, like within the past 50 years, which to the Romans, their sense of time, that's rather recent. Time moves slower for them. It moves much faster for us because of our technology. We have the means to communicate much faster than the Romans did. So when he says recently, he's like within the past 50-something years. Peccati erant, this is a euphemism. Who had recently been subdued. Here, peccati, if you look at it, the root is the noun pax, which means peace. They had been pacified. They had been made peaceful. They've had peace imposed upon them, which, if you think about it, they've had peace imposed. That's sort of a violent action when you're talking about peace. You violently force people to be peaceful. Interesting. And what he means by this, that they have become peaceful, they've become quiet and pacified, is that they conquered them in war. They killed a whole bunch of them in war, and so now they can't really fight back. Well, they've become quiet. You killed a whole bunch of them. Yes. The dead are quiet. Romans. So, qui nuper peccati erant, the Allobroges who had recently been pacified, who had been recently put down so that they could become peaceful. How nice of them. Rhodanus fluit. This is the subject here. Rhodanus, the Rhone River flows. This is the subject of the propterea quod, the causal clause here. Especially, this route is much easier and flightier, speedier, especially because the Rhodanus, the Rhone River, flows through the territory of the Helvetians and the Allobroges, who had recently been pacified. Isque, and is, it, is ea id, it's a masculine agreeing with the masculine Rhodanus. So Rhodanus e masculine, we have is, the antecedent of is Rhodanus. Is is a pronoun. And it, meaning the Rhone, the river, non nullis locis vado transitor. Non nullis is sometimes written as one word, sometimes written as two. Here it's been separated. Non nullis. Take it as one word if you want. It means not none. Not none means some. This is an example of litites, understatement for effect. It's not none homework I have left to do. Some, not none. You're trying to be understated. Understatement for effect. So some, or even means several. Several non nullis locis places. In several places, by means of several places. No, yeah, it's a location. It's several places. Vado. Vado Wadum e neuter, it's related to the English word wade, and you can wade in the shallows, in the shoals, shallow areas. So this is an ablative of means. It's by means of the wado, the shoals. I know it's singular. We're going to translate it as plural in English, the shallows. The shallow points of the river, transitor. That's how they're going to transitor, get across, transeo, meaning that the east, the subject here, the river, transitor, it is crossed in non nullis locis, in several places, wado, by means of shoals, meaning you can cross the river in the shallows at several points. There are several points along the river that it's crossable. You can translate transitor as crossable in English, or it is crossed. You can almost add it like a possent. It is able to be crossed. And the river is crossable in several places by the shallows. Extremum oppidum alabrogum est proximumque habitiorum finibus genava. It's a nice short sentence there. Extremum oppidum, extremus autem, the extreme. So it's the furthest, it's the outermost. It is superlative. So it agrees with oppidum. Finally, we are out of that previous sentence and we have a new subject. New subject is oppidum, e neuter. Hello, new subject. Nice to meet you. So the furthest, the outermost town, alabrogum, once again the genitive possession of the alabroges, est, and then we delay the name of the town because we love suspense. Proximumque. Then we have a connector, a conjunction que, it's post-positive, so translate that guy before the word to which it is attached, proximum. So proximum, it's kind of coordinate with extremum. It's once again describing the oppidum. So the furthest town of the alabroges and the proximum and the closest of the Helvetians, Helvetiorum, genitive. Proximus autem usually takes a dative, and that would be finibus. We would parse that finibus as a dative with adjective proximus. Proximique sunt Germanis, we had in chapter 1. They are the closest, the nearest, superlative, Germanis, to the Germans, to the Germani. Here, this oppidum is proximum, nearest to the finibus, to the territory, Helvetiorum, of the Helvetians. So the furthest town of the Alabroges and the nearest to the territory of the Helvetians, Genawa, is Genawa. We have our subject oppidum, then our linking verb est, present tense. Wow, this is really easy. This is like second week Latin 1, guys. Genawa, and then there's our predicate nominative, Genawa. Today we call it Geneva. It's still there. So the furthest town of the outermost town of the Alabroges and the closest to the territory of the Helvetians is Geneva. Ex eo oppido pons ad Helvetios pertinet. Another nice, short, easy sentence. Ex plus the ablative, separation. Then we have is ea id, eo, ablative, singular, masculine or neuter, and then followed up by oppido. So it's neuter, to agree with the neuter oppidum, e neuter. Town. From that town. Which town? Oh, we just mentioned that. Genawa, Geneva. So from that town, from Geneva, or you could say from this town, because we just mentioned Geneva, this, that, it doesn't matter in English really. From this town, a pons. This is our nominative singular masculine subject, a bridge. Ad plus the accusative motion towards Helvetios, Helvetii, the Helvetians. We're going towards the Helvetians. Pertinet, from pertineo, pertinere, pertinui, means to. In this case, what does a bridge do? Bridges don't really pertain, but they do stretch or they do extend. So from that town, Geneva, a bridge extends, pertinet, stretches to ad Helvetios, to the Helvetii. Alabrogibus sese vel persuasuros, quod non dum bono animo in populum Romanum viderentur, existimabant, vel vi coacturos, ut per suos fines eos ire paterentur. This is a great sentence. Check this one out. Alabrogibus. So dative or ablative plural. You got your alabroges, Don't know which one it is. Could be an ablative. We could have an ablative of means. Don't know. Say, the emphatic form of say. When say is not enough, you could always write it again and have say. So we have say. Typically, you see say as the accusative. I'm not sure if I've ever seen say in the ablative. Say. I've definitely seen say. I don't know about say. Say, in my head, typically means the accusative. So we have an accusative here. Weird. Wonder if there's another ablative showing up. Otherwise, elabrogibus might not be ablative. Well is a conjunction. It comes from wolo welle. There's the welle. So it's like it's or, but or if you like. It's different from out, like out, out, which is or if you have out, either or. Out exhausts the options. So you can have either out, first out, you can have either pizza or nachos. If you pick one, the pizza or the nachos, you have exhausted the other option. You can only have one, out. Well, you can have pizza, well, or you can have nachos, well, or you can have just the cheese, well, or you can have a monkey, or you can have some birds. I don't know. It's, well, you keep going. If you like this, you can have all of these if you want, or you can have more. Out exhausts them, well does not. So, well, if we have another well coming up, we do. Then it's going to be either or. Either persuasuros. All right, I'm pretty sure that elabrogibus is not going to be in the ablative. I'm pretty sure it's going to be in the dative, and it's going to be the object of the verb persuadeo, because persuadeo, you have to remember, takes the dative. Persuadeo also usually takes a noun clause introduced by ut, which we call an indirect command. So I'll keep an eye out for that. It's later. So we have persuasuros. So they... we have an infinitive here. There is an implied esse, persuasuros esse. Notice the os, accusative plural masculine. I would imagine that agrees with the say. And the say, you should, because it's reflexive, you should be able to circle the reflexive, draw an arrow to the subject. And we aren't there yet, but I'm going to imagine that the subject are the Helvetians. I don't know why I would think that, I just kind of do. So anyway, let's see. What we have here, we have an accusative, we have an infinitive, and nary a nominative in sight. I'm going to go ahead and guess that we probably have an indirect statement. Noun clause, telling as the object of some sort of head verb, of a verb of thinking, of hearing, of saying. So some other main verb coming up that introduces that they, the Helvetians, either persuasuros, future, it'll be subsequent to whatever this main verb is, will persuade the elabrogibus, will persuade the elabrogis. Quod. Quod is usually because. I don't see anything in the preceding that makes me think that it's a relative and there's an antecedent there, so because. Non dom, it's just non and dom, not yet. Dom means yet. Not yet, bono animo, bonus autem, agreeing with animus e masculine, meaning in a good mind, meaning with well-intentioned. You can kind of take this bono animo just to mean well-intentioned. In plus the accusative, meaning towards, into, some relationship in regards to, into or onto. Populum Romanum, there we go, to the Roman people. Viderentur, from video, videre. This is the passive form, so third plural, imperfect, passive, subjunctive. We have a subjunctive here because we have a subordinate clause, quod non dum bono animo in populum Romanum viderentur, introduced by quod. It is a subordinate causal clause telling us because. and must be in the subjunctive. Subordinate clauses in indirect statements are in the subjunctive, and they follow sequence of tenses based upon the main head verb, and that main head verb is coming up. So they did something, the Helvetians did something, they said or they thought or they heard or they felt that they, the Helvetians, say, would persuasoros, future, subsequent, would either, well, persuade the allabrogibus, the allobroges, quote, because, subordinate clause, must be subjunctive, nondum, not yet, viderentur, did they seem. Remember that to be seen is the same as to seem. Did they seem to be bono animo, in a good mind, in a good headspace, in a good sort of cheer, to be well-intentioned, in populum Romanum, towards the Roman people. The Allobroges didn't seem to be well-intentioned towards the Romans. Not yet, anyway, because they had recently been conquered by them. So they, something, existimabant, there's your head verb. Existimabant, the Helvetians, they were thinking. They had in mind, they thought, imperfect tense, existimabant, to guess, to reckon, estimate, to guesstimate. So the Allobroges were thinking, they thought, it was in their intention that they say, indirect statement, this is what they thought they would do. They would either persuade the Allobroges, because not yet did they, the Allobroges, seem to be well-intentioned towards the Romans. Well, there's the other one. Or, if that doesn't work, we could also, we don't have to do one out, or the other. We can actually do all of these. If we can't persuade them, we don't just, all right, pack it up, boys, let's go home. No, well, or we could coacturos, or we can compel them by force. We can make them. Wis feminine. So that is the ablative, by means of force, it's the root of violence, violentia. By means of violence, they will coacturos, which is either persuasuros or coacturos, compel, force them, drive them, make them by force. We can either persuade them because they don't seem to like the Romans very much, at least not yet, or barring that, if they're like, no, we will not betray the Romans, then we will draw swords, force them. Ut, what are we going to force them to do? We have to have a clause coming up, so that we have a noun clause. This is our indirect command. This is what we're going to command them to do, either by persuading them or coacturos at sword point when we force them. So that, ut, per suos fines eos ire paterentur, so that they might, paterentur, imperfect subjunctive of a deponent verb, patior, pati, passusum, to suffer, endure, to allow. Notice that it is imperfect. It looks passive. Please translate as active because it's deponent. They might suffer, endure, or allow eos, them, the Helvetians, to ire, to suffer them to go, per suos fines, through their own territory. You can circle the su in suos and draw an arrow to the subject, which is paterentur, the third person plural entor. That's they, the Allobroges. We've switched subjects. The Allobroges are to suffer, endure, or allow eos, the Helvetians, to go through their own Allobroges, suos fines, territory. The os on suos is accusative plural masculine and must agree with fines. So that's how you know the suos links up with fines, and you know that the suos refers to the Allobroges because it refers to the subject. The subject is found in paterentur. We're talking about the Allobroges have to suffer the Helvetians. Omnibus rebus ad profectionem comparatis diem dicunt, quadie ad ripam Rhodani omnes conveniant. So omnibus rebus, ablative or dative. I'm guessing it's going to be ablative, but looks kind of dative-y a little bit. Ad profectionem, ad plus the accusative of profectio, profectionis. This is the noun form of proficiscor. So instead of to set out, this is a setting out, a departure. So ad profectionem, for departure, in regards to departure, to departure. Comparatis, from comparo, comparare, comparavi, comparatus, to get ready, to prepare, paro, prepare. That is the perfect passive participle, either dative or ablative. It's going to be ablative because this looks like a great ablative absolute. Omnibus rebus comparatis. Your training wheels translation, with all rebus, stuff, comparatis, readied, gotten ready, prepared. What stuff? What rebus? It's the ad perfectionem. It's the stuff for departure. With all the stuff for departure readied, prepared. You can translate this temporally. After all was readied for departure, after all these things, after all these affairs were readied for their departure, diem dicunt, they say the day, they name the day. Qua die, on which day? Qua is the ablative, agreeing with the ablative die. What? It's feminine. Remember in chapter 4, die constituta. Die was feminine, switched genders and became feminine when it was referring to a specific day. This is a specific day. They name a diem a specific day. And qua die, which day, that day, conveniant, on which day, omnes conveniant, all might convene, gather, ad ripam Rhodani, at the ripam, the bank of the Rhone River. Remember, a river will have two banks on one side and then on the other side. They're going to gather on the one side of the Rhone River because they have to transeo, they have to cross it. So qua die, on which day they are to convene. They are all to convene at the bank of the Rhone River. This is more correctly, like at the top, the quibus itineribus, a purpose clause, a relative purpose clause, where qua die really stands in for ut ea die, so that on that day, that all may convene at the bank of the Rhone River. That's why they named the day. Why? So they could all gather on the same day. Oh, okay. And then now we're going to name that day. We're going to put down in the history books when they decided they were going to meet on the banks of the Rhone. Isties erat, and that day, isties, that day. Which one? The one we were just talking about. Oh, erat was ante diem quintum calendas apriles Lucio Pisone auleo Gabinio consulibus. So that day was ante diem quintum. That means the 5th day before calendas apriles, the calends of April. And of course, remember the calends, the calendar, the call day from kaleo. That is that's one of the few words where Latin retains the K. It's also where we get the word calendar, and that is the 1st day of the month because you called it out. It's May 1st. Well done. So that day was the 5th day before the 1st day of April. So it's actually a date in March. Now, you have to remember, so March has 31 days. Romans count inclusively. So the day before, so March 31st, the day before the calends, is going to actually count by the Romans as 2 days before the calends, because they count the calends as one day in and of itself. So you have to add to March 31, take 31 days, you add 2 to get 33, subtract the 5, and you get March 28th. Please refer to the notes if what I said confuses you. If it still confuses you, that's okay. So, ante diem quintum calendas apriles translates roughly to March 28th. And then Lucio Pisone auleo Gabinio consulibus gives us the year, because the Romans tended to name their years after whoever were the consuls, the supreme executive magistrates of the Republic for that year. And in that year, Lucius Piso and Aulus Gabinius were consuls. Your training wheels translation of the ablative absolute with Lucius Piso and Aulus Gabinius being, the being implied, consuls, or you can translate it as in the consulship of Lucius Piso and Aulus Gabinius. And that year is 58 BC, a year after Caesar's consulship in 59, This is Caesar's first year as proconsular, is his first proconsularship of Gaul.